Good morning. This is David bringing you week 8 of 52 churches in 52 weeks. This visit will probably be the most socially awkward I've ever had before in my life. We are at Owen Mennonite Church. With a Mennonite church, they're very much like the Amish. So they dress the same way, very traditional, very conservative. But with Mennonites compared to the Amish, they accept motorized vehicles. They are okay with electricity and telephones in the house, but they all dress very plain. And I'm in the parking lot right now, and immediately driving in, I have a bright orange Jeep, and in this parking lot, I think they're all at Sunday school right now. Every vehicle here is very plain, black, dark navy blue, or dark gray. So I am sticking out like a King Kong-sized sore thumb in this parking lot. The preaching begins in a few minutes, so I'm about to walk in. This will be very socially awkward for me, but as an introvert, I usually am socially awkward, so that shouldn't be too hard to do for me. I'm making this socially awkward right now for you. Anyway, but we're going to see what this is like. I don't know how much footage I'll be able to get inside, because I don't think it would be very respectful to have my phone on for the majority of this church service, but we'll see what happens. So wish me luck. Well, that was a trip. So one of the most interesting and unique church visits I've ever been a part of. And for this video, this is just first reactions, first impressions when it comes to attending a Mennonite church. My understanding is there's different types of Mennonites. And with this particular church visit, the Mennonites that I was a part of, I understand there's 3 types. There is more worldly Mennonites, conservative Mennonites, and then an old order Mennonites. And the old order Mennonites are very Amish-like when it comes to still using horses and buggies and being very, very traditional. Conservative Mennonites, that's what I believe the church service I was a part of. So yeah, they use vehicles, they use cars, but they're plain people. They are not going out of their way to be of the world. They're kind of their own brethren, their own brotherhood. And that was very apparent during the entire church service, especially when it came to the preaching. So first thing that happened, so I walked in about 15 minutes before the preaching started. Everyone was already inside. So when I walked in, on the left side of me, that's where all the children were attending their Sunday school. I walked straight to the sanctuary, and I took the first pew that I saw open. As soon as I sat down, I realized, wait a minute, I'm sitting on the left side. All women were on the left side. They were all wearing white bonnets. They all had their little house on the prairie dresses. I looked to the right side, and all the men were seated on the right. They all were uniform. They were all wearing white dress shirts, buttoned up just like this, black pants and black shoes. They immediately kind of knew I was an outsider. And even though I dressed pretty much on point for what I was kind of expecting, I was wearing a tie. And with the tie, immediately everyone, it didn't matter what I dressed. I'm sure everyone would have noticed that, yeah, who is this guy? So a gentleman holding a baby, his name was Ivan. He kind of waved me over. Very nice gentleman. He kind of filled me in on a couple different key parts of the actual church service and let me know, hey, yeah, our church service, it's segregated between women and men. It's like, yep, I can tell that. And eventually at 10:30, a little bell rang. So all the children finished up their Sunday school, and then they joined the parents. So again, on the right side, it was mainly boys, still dressed like the men, white collared shirts, black pants, black shoes. And then most of the girls went on the left side. A few younger, kind of like toddler girls would join their dads on the right side, but not many. And church service started. I think there was one hymn that was sung a cappella. I didn't hear any kind of piano or organ. And eventually what happened is, and Ivan kind of told me, where it's like, yeah, when it comes to praying, we kneel on the pew. That was good to know, because as soon as the first speaker got up front and they started saying the prayer, everyone got out of their pew and turned around, kneeling down towards the pew. So never done that before. Very humbling to get down on your knees to pray with a huge gathering in there. I counted 10 pews on the left with 4 side pews for the women, 10 pews on the right side, 4 side pews for the men. The majority were pretty much to the brink, full capacity. But they had 3 gentlemen, all brothers, not biological brothers, but brothers within the community, who got up front to do their preaching. So the first gentleman, he read from John 10, and it was, I think I want to say it's King James Bible, but it was all very old school when it came to what was actually in the Bible. So just to read it real quick, just a few verses. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that entereth not by the door into the sheepfold, but climbeth up some other way, the same is a thief and a robber. But he that entereth in by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. To him the porter openeth, and the sheep hear his voice, and he calleth his own sheep by name, and leadeth them out. So when it came to who was up at the lectern, the preaching was very, and I don't mean to be disrespectful by saying this, it was very, very dry.
We're not find pasture. Abundant pastures he refers to. He says that they might have it more abundantly. Does my family find abundant life under my shepherding, or do I shepherd in a way that makes them feel fenced in and desiring some other pasture, desiring to follow the thieves and the robbers and the strange voices?
Obviously, when it comes to Mennonite culture, it's not going to be very animated, so I wasn't expecting some wordsmith type of preacher to be linguistically throwing out all these amazing terms. For this particular church, it was much more about the concepts of brotherhood, because the thing that I kept hearing most was work, rest, and worship. Those were the 3 biggest things I was taking away from this. The majority of the preaching was done by a gentleman that had traveled from Pennsylvania. So his main sermon theme was the biblical concept of brotherhood and working together as brethren. So one of the things that he would bring up was, how do we work together? What would life look like if we didn't have the things that we have right now? So for this particular church, it was church. It was a community. It was the brotherhood. It was school. And one of the things that he challenged the congregation with was, what would that look like if we didn't have that? We would be in dire need of something. So everything that he was teaching it was all supposed to be focused on Jesus Christ, not of the world. So one of the big analogies that he used was driving a herd. So he kind of brought up the story. He had, if you want to drive a herd, and he kind of mentioned he would herd goats. So one thing that they would do is they would have a kind of like an alpha goat, a dominant goat, and that goat would need to hear and know the owner's voice. So as long as you got that lead goat at the front, you could lead the entire herd together. Well, one time they acquired another herd from southern Texas. you combine the herds together, and suddenly they don't know how to blend together. And some of the goats are going off their different way. They have their own type of leader, and you're still trying to figure out how to blend that together. And he kind of preached about, okay, how do we blend our brotherhood together? How do we be a community? How do we avoid the world, for that matter, so that we can get the most out of each other? Some of the other things that he brought forward was just some more fundamental kind of things, like how we should be. And I'm not saying me, I'm saying the congregation. Like he challenged the congregation where they should be at least 10 minutes early. That they should actually use the restroom before they come because you don't want to be interrupting the service. All these small little things to make sure that everyone is together, because when it comes to that herd, the way that they're kind of preaching that is we are all uniform. We're all wearing the same thing. We all believe the same Jesus Christ. How do we take everything that we are as people? How do we herd together to reach a common goal? And it was an interesting metaphor because, yeah, in today's day and age, it's all about me, 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 me. It's all about your identity. And as a result, as society in the United States especially, we're all kind of going our own ways. And we don't have, and with Jesus Christ being the shepherd, it's harder to bring everyone back together. So as a collective type of people, we aren't following Jesus Christ the same way. And we're seeing that kind of tear apart when it comes to society. So my own type of more modern type of understanding of the world right now, compared to the Mennonites, is like, yeah, there's a lot of truth for what they were preaching for this particular sermon. One of the weirdest things, though, is with this particular meeting house, there's no cross symbolism. There were no pictures of Jesus Christ that I saw. Instead, right where they would be preaching, above them would be a clock. So every time that you'd be looking at whoever was preaching, you'd be looking at the clock. And every time, it just made the service longer, because it's like, oh man, I've been here 45 minutes. When is the service gonna end? It was really strange that they put the clock right where the preaching is. But anyway, service wrapped up, did another kneel down for a prayer, one more hymn, and then they dismissed the church. Everyone stood up, but no one was leaving. So, I thanked Ivan, another gentleman, I think his name was Sheldon, greeted me, welcomed me to their church. I asked a couple questions, and because no one was leaving, it's like, well, I guess I'll just take off. And Ivan, he kind of followed me out to the door, and he gave me just a bunch of different stuff. So, looks like an a cappella gospel singing that they do. Amazing Grace from their choir. Just different things I could listen to later. I did get looks, especially from the children, especially when I was walking out, because I had a lot of kids kind of wondering, who is this guy? So that's what a Mennonite church looks like to a first-time visitor, essentially walking into church like Little House on the Prairie. So an absolute wild ride. The segregation, never been a part of something like that. And just to get so many looks from kids, being a complete outsider, the social awkwardness was very high today. So that's week 8. Make sure to like and subscribe. That helps with the YouTube reach, so more people can check out what this is all about. If you like to read about the first 52 churches in 52 weeks, check it out on Amazon. I'll put a little icon in the corner over here. You can read it in paperback, hardcover, ebook, and Kindle Unlimited. So week 9, don't know where I'm going to go yet. If you got any requests, feel free to leave that below. But that's going to do it for me. Thanks for watching, and hope you have a good one.